to welcome you all to the Strategic Partnership Grants Workshop today. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. I see some familiar faces here and some new names and faces on my screen. So I'm going to introduce myself. I am Sarah Joss. I am a grants manager here within the Strategic Partnerships Department for Buncombe County. And some of you might recognize me from my prior work with the COVID recovery funds for the county. And I'm now moved over to community investments and very much looking forward to working with you all on our other grant programs. And I also want to introduce Angelyn Johnson, who's on the call today, another grants manager that I'm sure many, if not all of you, are familiar with. We work with Rachel Nygaard, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so give me just a moment. All right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Here's our agenda for the day. We're going to start out giving just a brief overview of Buncombe County and the current strategic plan. Then we'll move into county grant funding and talk about the strategic partnership grants process and what that looks like. We'll then move into tips for a successful grant application and walk through the different components of the application and scoring. And then we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A and discussion. And not to worry, we will be sending out a PDF of this presentation to everyone after after the workshop today. So you will get all of this information in your inbox shortly. All right, Buncombe County. Our main website is www.buncombecounty.org, and here you can find a lot of really wonderful information, including current news articles, COVID-19 updates. There's a lot of information for different departments and services that you can access here. You can find our current budget on this website, as well as information about transparency and map tools and data. So a really great central place to find lots of information. This is an organizational chart that shows the operation of our county leadership as well as different departments within the county. So we have an annual general fund budget of nearly $400 million, and that is spread across 25 departments. You'll see at the top, we have our Board of Commissioners, which are elected officials. And then we have our county manager, Avril Pinder, who joined Buncombe County in March of 2019. Working with Avril is DK Wesley and Sybil Tate, who are our assistant county managers. And the Strategic Partnerships Department is situated within the Community and Justice Services arm of the county, which is under the purview of DK Wesley. So you'll see at the bottom left-hand part of your screen, Rachel Nygaard is the director of the Strategic Partnerships Department. A little bit more about Buncombe County's Board of Commissioners. We operate under a form of government known as council manager, and that means that staff take direction and implement policy from the Board of Commissioners. So the board consists of 7 members that serve staggered 4-year terms throughout partisan elections. The county is split into 3 districts, and each district has 2 commissioners, as well as the chair of the board who is elected at large or countywide. County strategic plan. Buncombe County's current strategic plan took effect in July of 2020. So we are now in our 3rd year of this 5-year plan. And if you want to dig more into the strategic plan and learn about all of the different priority areas, you can access that at buncombecounty.org/2025. So this strategic plan articulates a vision, values, and governing principles that we hope you see embodied in the work that you do with us as customers of Buncombe County. And we as county government can't realize this vision alone. So we rely very heavily on partnerships with organizations like yours through initiatives like this grant program and many others as we work to move the needle on the issues that matter most. You can see on your screen our strategic vision, which is a caring community in harmony with its environment where citizens succeed, thrive, and realize their potential. So if you look at our strategic plan, we have some strategic focus areas within that. That's broken out into community focus areas and foundational focus areas. So our community focus areas, or priority community focus areas, are an educated and capable community, environmental and energy stewardship, resident well-being, and a vibrant economy. And you've probably heard this many times as you have worked with Buncombe County, attended or listened in to commissioner meetings, or applied for grants. And then foundational focus areas for our work within the county itself are equity, operational excellence, and resources. If you go to www.buncombecounty.org/grants, you will find the image on your left of your screen, which shows the different areas for funding. We are awarding about $10 million in annual grants, and we also had the COVID recovery funding coming from US Treasury directly to Buncombe County, which was about $51 million in that one-time grant funding. The majority of those funds have been awarded at this point, and there's still, I believe, maybe a little over 3 million left there that county commissioners are taking the lead on in making awards. So on this page, you'll see different grant opportunities as well as specific bid opportunities and RFPs available. So we're all here today to learn a little bit more about strategic partnership grants specifically, including the purpose, funding, eligibility, timeline, review, and awards. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper here in this presentation, but you can also click on the grant guidelines button at buncombecounty.org/grants. When you click into each of the specific grant programs, there will be a grant guideline for FY24 that breaks down all of this information in a very comprehensive document that you can download. Strategic partnership grants are here to advance the county's strategic plan. So it's across our focus areas. It is a $900,000 total budget for FY24. And grants are available to nonprofit organizations in active operation for at least 2 years. Funded projects, again, have to align with strategic plan focus areas. And projects may not be funded for more than 3 years for a single project. So if you are reapplying for 3 years for the same project, you are not eligible to reapply under that same project for a 4th year or additional years after that. You'll have to apply for a different project. And funding must represent less than 30% of an organization's annual budget. So applicants are encouraged to request $80,000 or less through this grant program. This is a nice little graphic of our grant cycle, which starts with grant applications, which are due in February. And then there is a grant review, so a review of those proposals and applications by our review team and committee, and that takes place in the spring, March through May. Awards are made in June of each year, and then the grant period where the contract is signed and the project is implemented and the funds are dispersed is between July 1st and June 30th of each year, which is the county's fiscal year. And then year-round, we do grant monitoring, provide support, and process improvement for this grant cycle. And here's a specific grant timeline for our FY 2024 cycle. On February 11th, or I'm sorry, it's actually February 10th. Looks like we still have last year's deadline in there. This year is February 10th of 2023. Applications are due by 5 p.m. And it's very important that you make sure you are submitting your applications by that 5 p.m. deadline, because we are not accepting any late applications. So please make sure that you have uploaded all of your materials, submitted your answers, and that it's gone through well before 5 p.m. on February 10th. And then February through April, this is the time when the grant review will take place by the Strategic Partnership Grants Committee, and they will provide recommendations for funding through this grant program to the County Budget Office by April 28th of 2023. Then in May, those grant recommendations will be published with the county manager's budget message. And in June of 2023, there will be a public hearing on the budget as part of the Board of Commissioners regular meeting, as well as the grant awards being finalized with the county budget adoptions during the Board of Commissioners regular meetings. Here's a little look at our FY23 grants. So that is the current grant cycle that we are in. About 2.6 million was requested through applications and 900,000 was granted. This is provides funding to 36 organizations for 37 total projects, and the average grant award was $24,324, with the median grant award being $19,500. And if you look at those 4 different strategic priority areas, we have about 10 projects, compiling about 20% of the total funds in education, 2 projects with 6% of funds in environment, 19 projects with 47% of funds in well-being, and 6 projects with about 19% of total funds in economy. So that gives you a nice little breakdown of where you see projects hitting those different strategic priority buckets. A little bit of information about actually applying. So the complete grant information is available again at buncombecounty.org/grants. That is through our website. But we have a separate grant platform, grant software platform, where you will actually be completing your application and submitting it. That's one of 2 options for applying. If you are looking to do it electronically, that's through our grant software at buncombecounty.org/apply, and that will route you to the grant software where you're required to create an account, or if you have one, you can log in with your credentials that you've used in the past. Or you can apply on paper or PDF and pick up a hard copy of the application at our main office at 200 College Street, Suite 343. And that's in the main administration building downtown, just across from the courthouse. And again, we're asking you to apply by the deadline, and no late applications will be accepted. So let's move into the application questions. You're going to be looking at 12 core application questions for this grant program. The first one is going to be the focus area and category. So this is going to be a drop-down list where you're going to be asked to select the strategy that most closely applies to the project, whether that's education, environment, well-being, or economy. Then you're going to tell us about the need for the project. So what is the community need and purpose this project is established to address? And we're going to ask for data or qualitative factors to show that need, and a description of how that project fits into the county's strategic plan focus areas or goals. We're also going to ask about your primary location, which is the address for the primary location where services will be delivered. The geography served, which relates to where people live who are served by the project, so service recipients. And we're also going to be asking about population served. So that's going to be the population that will be impacted by the project. project plan is the next question, and that's going to ask you to describe how the project will work and who it will serve. So any models or evidence-based practices can be included here, as well as collaboration with partners, program partners or project partners that would exemplify the success of the project, as well as specific activities and milestones included in the project plan. We're also going to ask about results. So this is what you are hoping to achieve with the project and how you will specifically measure that success. So we really want you to be specific here about how much work will be completed and how many people will be served. If this is a request for renewed funding, so you've already been funded for 1 or 2 years with this project and are applying for an additional year, we're going to ask you to describe your actual project results that you've achieved in the current year that you've already been funded, to help us see comprehensively what might be possible in a second or third year of funding. The next question is about equity. So how does your organization define equity, and a description of your organization's equity strategy and activities? How is equity reflected in the proposed project? And in this question, we do have a definition that Buncombe County provides in our strategic plan of equity and how it's being incorporated in the county. Organizational capacity is going to ask about the mission and values of your organization. Who are the leaders of your organization? Who are making strategic decisions? Who is leading your project? So the organizational structure, as well as any success stories or examples of past initiatives that really demonstrate your organizational ability to carry out the proposed project plan. The budget form and narrative, we do provide a downloadable copy of the budget form for you to complete, and ask that you complete that budget form and upload it. We also ask for a budget narrative, which explains a bit about your proposed revenue and expenses for this project. So we want to hear about any other sources of revenue that might be coming in to help make this project successful, as well as the expenses that you are proposing to be covered by county funds. And then sustainability is going to be talking about the organization's capacity to raise funds to continue the project beyond the 3-year limit for the strategic partnership grant. And we'll talk a little bit more about some tips for writing about sustainability in your application. Then we do have an opportunity for you to include any other information that you think might be pertinent for our committee to review as they're evaluating your proposal. That can include any attachments or additional narrative information that you would like to include. This is a nice look at the scoring criteria, and this is something that is a little bit different this year. So we are including this in the grant guidelines so that all organizations can see what is actually being scored in their application. And hopefully this will be really helpful in determining how you write your grant proposal. So you'll see here that there's a scoring on a scale of 1 to 5 across 6 different categories. So that gives a maximum total score of 30 points. Every question is equally weighted. And these categories that are being scored are need, project plan, proposed results, capacity, equity, and budget. And so just so that everyone knows, these are included in the grant guidelines and designed to reward strong projects as opposed to well-written applications. We all know that there are organizations that have professional grant writers on staff and some organizations that are smaller and more grassroots. And we absolutely want to make sure that we are scoring these projects and providing awards based on really strong projects in our community. A little bit more information about the scoring process. Like I said, it's on a scale of 1 to 5 with those 6 categories that are equally weighted. And then committee members at the end of our application period, so after February 10th, committee members will review every single application, read through each answer that you provide for those application questions, and provide a total score for each project. After they've completed that, they will then negotiate award amounts for the highest scoring projects. So there is an opportunity for partial award or partial funding for certain projects, depending on the number of high scoring projects and the ability of funds to be distributed in the ways necessary for projects to be successful. All right, let's talk through a few tips for a successful grant application. Everyone has probably seen some of these in some form or fashion. They're not unique to Buncombe County grants in particular, but here's a general refresher. The first thing is keep the scoring criteria in mind. Before, during, and after drafting your responses, take a look at the 5 scoring criteria and put yourself in the shoes of a committee member who will be reading your application with these criteria in mind. So as you're writing your grant, look through that scoring criteria in the grant guidelines and really be comparing your answers to what is being expected in those scoring criteria. Take your time. This means reading the full application in advance, including the attachments, and creating a reasonable work plan to complete everything before the deadline. Like we've said a couple times already, you'll hear it a few more times today. We do not accept late applications. So make sure that you have all of your information in that portal or in your written application, and it is submitted well before 5 p.m. on February 10th. Don't wait until the last minute, because trust me, every year we have folks saying, well, I logged in 5 minutes before 5 p.m. and I couldn't get it submitted because of technical difficulties. We're sorry, but we're not able to accept that application. So definitely get it done ahead of time. Be clear. Use plain language and don't overly complicate your plan or your message. Avoid acronyms and jargon, and don't assume the reader has a predetermined knowledge of any part of your application question or answer. Be concise. Often, less is more. So the reviewers have a lot of material to work through, and don't feel like you have to use up the character limits just because they're there. Be consistent. Make sure all the sections of your proposal match, especially the grant narrative and the budget. Pay attention to detail, especially true on the budget workbook. So make sure in that Excel form that all of your numbers add up and that your data is consistent in your budget. Here we are again with knowing how to talk about sustainability, the dreaded grant application question. Utilize different components of your organization's strategic plan, things like overall financial health, annual fundraising efforts, additional grant funding, or corporate and community partnerships to help communicate the viability of your project's sustained success. So give a comprehensive overview of what strategies are going to make your project successful. Be relatable. While always remaining professional, don't be afraid to show a little personality, enthusiasm, and relatability in your writing. We want to hear about your organization and your project in your words. So make sure that you are using the language that you think reflects your organization best. And then the last one, ask for help. Take us up on our offer of grant consultation, which we'll talk about in just a moment here. We are available, and we would love for you to reach out and book some time with staff, myself, Angeline, or Rachel to talk about your project ideas and ask questions that you might have as you're applying. And on that note, here's some information about that grant assistance or grant consultations. If you have additional questions after this presentation, you are welcome to book a 30-minute grant consultation with staff. As a note, staff does not review or score or recommend any awards through this process. We are purely here to support organizations and support the review team, the committee, to make those decisions. So we are available for these 30-minute consultations for any questions or ideas or feedback that you all might want on your grant projects. You can sign up for a session here, and Angelin is also going to drop that link in the chat so you have easy access to it, and you can sign up that way. So in summary, we would love for you to hear the message that we are here to help. The three of us, our jobs are to support you all in making sure that we can provide funding to your organizations for the incredible work that you continue to do in our community. So please feel free to reach out anytime with any questions whatsoever. And we really appreciate you all asking questions because it also helps us continually evolve in our process in making sure that we're being as clear and effective and supportive as possible. So here is our contact information, phone numbers, and emails. Please feel free to reach out anytime. And finally, the last part of this workshop is going to be the Q&A part. So I am going to stop sharing my screen in a moment, and I'm going to ask that you use your Zoom features to either place a question in the chat box, which Angelin will be looking for, or if you want to jump on your camera and raise your hand that way, we can call on you that way. Give me just a moment to stop sharing. All right. Any questions?
I'll start off. I guess maybe just what kind of advice would you have for people that are submitting a renewal application?
So for renewal applications, if your original proposal was awarded, that obviously means that it was highly scored and prioritized. There is that part of the application that does ask you to provide actual results from your first year of funding. So definitely include that information. That's really helpful for our committee to be able to see the actual impact that your project has had and not just your proposed results. So I would definitely talk about that in your application. Anything else you want to add to that, Angelin?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just make sure that you're highlighting what you have been able to accomplish, but then also don't be afraid if you have faced challenges that maybe have impacted your success. Don't be afraid to address that and maybe, explain what you have faced and how you're overcoming that as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we were on track, and perhaps I'll just set up maybe a consultation. Like our program that was awarded actually doesn't occur until this coming summer. And so like some of the results I won't have at this point, but we're on track in regards to where I'm supposed to be at this point.
And I think with that, you can also talk about the implementation steps getting up to, like leading up to the actual program actualization. And any successes or challenges that you've seen with that so far.
So Sarah, in the chat, we have a question. If we're working in partnership with another organization, would it be better to write it together and ask for a larger shared amount or to write 2 individual grant applications? And that one, it's kind of up to your discretion. But I will say, if you are submitting 2 separate applications for the same project, there is the chance that only one of them are going to get funded. And so you may end up with a partial award. So if it's something that it's, that it truly is a partnership where you will be working step by step together, it may be better to do the one project application, just so that, when you do receive the funding, you may be likely to get you may be likely to get more of the funding than if you submit 2 and only one of them get approved, because the committee could look at it and say, well, this is 2 organizations working on the same project, and they may not award the funding for both applications.
And I'll say with that too, make sure that you indicate who the lead organization will be for the project. So who will be doing all of the grant management, administrative parts, submitting your invoices for payments, things of that nature, and grant reporting.
Maddie, I think you had your hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, I just had a budget question. So you said that it's based on 30% or less of your annual budget. Does that have to be your most recently filed 990 or just like your most recent fiscal year's budget?
Nope, it's based on your most recent adopted budget.
Okay, thanks.
And indirect costs are eligible for this grant funding. So keep that in mind as well as you are creating your budget. We all know that operational costs are hard to come by, especially in the grant world. And that's something that we very much want to take into consideration, is to help with your capacity to support your programming. So something to note there.
Yes, and along those same lines, if you are selected and are funded, the contract will have some standard insurances and financials that are required. And so if that's something that you don't generally carry as an organization, you can build that into your budget as well.
Any other questions that folks have? And please feel free, if you don't want to ask a question here, you can email myself or Angeline or Rachel and reach out that way with your questions. We are happy to respond that way as well. All right, well, if there are no other questions, then we can wrap it up for today. Again, thank you all so much for joining and for all of the incredible work that you do in our community. We appreciate you so much and value these partnerships so very much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your afternoon.